there is a strange loneliness that haunts modern life, a feeling of being disconnected, even when you are more connected than any human in history. For years, I felt like a ghost haunting my own life, following all the rules but feeling none of the joy. I didn't realize I was starving a part of myself, an ancient, wild, and wise part, that modern life had taught me to ignore. If you've ever felt like you're playing a part rather than living a life, it's not your fault. It's a sign that your deepest self is trying to call you home. Subscribe, and let's learn how to read the map. Part 1. The Echo of the Ancient Self. Listen. Do you hear that? It's the sound of a log splitting in the heat, the hiss of sap, the quiet sigh of the embers. It's one of the oldest sounds known to humanity. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors sat around fires just like this one. The fire was their source of warmth, their protection from the darkness, the heart of their community. It was where they shared their stories, their dreams, their fears. Their minds were shaped by this sound, by the rhythm of the flames, by the vast, silent darkness of the forest that lay just beyond the circle of light. That world, that deep, elemental connection to the earth, to the tribe, to the very marrow of existence, is still encoded in our DNA. It's in the deepest, most ancient part of our neurology. It's a part of us that I call the primal self. And that is the source of the strange loneliness, the persistent, nagging feeling of being off, that so many of us feel in the year 2025. We live in a world of wonders, a world of instant information and global connection. We have access to comforts and technologies our ancestors couldn't have even conceived of. And yet, we are haunted. We feel a quiet, ever-present anxiety. We feel disconnected, even when we are staring at a screen that connects us to billions of people. We feel a sense of being fundamentally unnourished, even when our refrigerators are full. We have everything, and yet something is profoundly missing. That missing piece is our connection to this primal self. Let me be clear what I mean by primal. I don't mean primitive in the sense of being brutish, savage, or unintelligent. That's a slander we tell ourselves to feel superior to the past. By primal, I mean foundational. I mean the original, core operating system of your being. It's the part of you that knows, without words, how to read the energy in a room. It's the part that feels a deep, soul-level peace when you stand in an old-growth forest. It's the instinct that gives you that unshakable gut feeling about a person or a situation. It's your innate intuition, your deep-seated resilience, your connection to the cycles of nature, your capacity for fierce loyalty, and your untamed creativity. It is the wild, wise animal that is meant to be the foundation of your human experience. The tragedy of modern life is that it has been meticulously designed, with an almost diabolical precision, to suppress, ignore, and starve this primal self. Our world demands that we live almost exclusively in our prefrontal cortex, in the logical, analytical, planning part of our minds. It rewards conformity over authenticity, productivity over presence, and consumption over connection. It has built a beautiful, comfortable, climate-controlled cage for us, and it has convinced us that the cage is the whole world. And so, the wild animal within us grows listless, sick, and sad. The feeling of being off, that chronic, low-grade depression and anxiety so rampant today, is not a sign that you are broken. It is a sign that a vital part of you is being starved. It is the echo of your ancient primal self, crying out from the basement of your soul, begging you to remember it is still there. Part 2. The digital pacifier, the primary tool our culture uses to enforce the suppression, to weave the veil that separates us from our primal self, is the small, glowing rectangle we all carry in our pockets. The smartphone and the digital universe it represents. It is, without question, the most effective pacifier for the primal self ever invented. The primal self thrives on stillness, on unfiltered reality, on direct, sensory experience. The digital world is its polar opposite. It is an environment of constant, shallow stimulation. Think about how we use it. The moment we feel a pang of boredom, a moment of unstructured time, waiting in line, sitting on a bus, the first moments of waking, what do? We reach for the phone. Boredom, for the primal self, is not a problem to be solved. it is a gateway. It's the space in which our minds can wander, make new connections, and hear the subtle whispers of our own intuition. But we have become terrified of this space. We plug it with a scroll through social media, a quick game, a glance at the news. We are constantly feeding our minds a diet of digital junk food, leaving no room for the deep, nourishing meal of real reflection. This digital stimulation also erodes our internal guidance system. Your primal self communicates through subtle bodily sensations, the knot in your stomach, the tension in your shoulders, the feeling of expansion in your chest. But we are so busy looking at our screens, so disembodied, that we no longer notice these signals until they become a full-blown anxiety attack or a chronic illness. We've outsourced our sense of direction to algorithms. We let Spotify tell us what music we like, we let Netflix tell us what stories to watch, we let Amazon tell us what we need to buy. We let the curated, outrage-fueled narratives of our news feeds tell us what to think and what to feel. We have, in a very real sense, replaced our own inner compass, our primal intuition, with an external, artificial one. And we wonder why we feel so lost. And then there is the devastating effect of constant comparison. Social media is not a window into other people's lives. It is a highlight reel of their carefully constructed performances. We sit there, in the messy, imperfect reality of our own lives, and we scroll through an endless parade of perfect vacations, perfect families, perfect bodies, and perfect careers. And our primal self, which understands reality through direct, honest comparison with our immediate tribe, gets hopelessly confused. It looks at this impossible, artificial standard and concludes, I am not enough. I am lacking. I am failing. This creates a chronic sense of inadequacy that drives so much of our anxiety and consumerism. We are trying to fill a hole that was dug in us by the very tools we are using to try and feel connected. The veil of modernity is woven from these digital threads, and it is so effective that most of us don't even realize we are looking through it. It has become our new reality. Part 3. The performance of perfection. The digital veil is only one layer. The other, older layer is the immense societal pressure to conform and perform. From a very young age, we are trained to suppress our authentic primal impulses in favor of being good. Be a good boy. Be a good girl. Don't be too loud. Don't be too emotional. Don't get angry. Don't cry. Sit still. Follow the rules. We are taught that our worth is conditional. It depends on our achievements, on our productivity, on our ability to please others and fit neatly into the boxes that society has created for us. Our primal self doesn't understand these rules. It is not good or bad, it simply is. It is wild, emotional, and unapologetically authentic. It gets angry. It grieves loudly. It loves fiercely. It plays with joyful abandon. It is, by its very nature, messy. And so we are taught, through 1,000 subtle and not-so-subtle cues, to cage this messy, wild part of ourselves. We build a persona, a carefully curated mask that is acceptable, likable, and successful. This mask becomes our ego, the personality we present to the world. The problem is that, over time, we forget we are wearing a mask. We begin to believe the performance is who we really are. And the true, primal self, locked away in the darkness, begins to wither. This pressure to perform, to be perfect, is amplified in our professional lives. The modern corporate world, for the most part, is not a place that values primal wisdom. It values data, logic, and relentless efficiency. It demands that we treat ourselves like machines, suppressing our physical needs for rest, our emotional need for connection, and our intuitive sense of what is right. We drink coffee to override our body's need for sleep. We sit in sterile, fluorescent-lit offices, divorced from the natural world that our bodies are designed for. We engage in work that often feels meaningless and disconnected from any real, tangible value, a mere shuffling of digital paper. This profound disconnect between our primal nature and our daily reality creates a state of deep psychic distress. It's the source of the burnout epidemic. Burnout is not just about working too hard. It's about a fundamental conflict between the soul and the role. It is the cry of the primal self, saying, I cannot live like this anymore. This is not what I was made for. The American philosopher Henry David Thoreau spoke of this over 150 years ago when he wrote about the mass of men leading lives of quiet desperation. That desperation is the silent scream of the caged primal self. We are sold a dream of success that requires us to amputate the most vital parts of our own being, and we are promised that the rewards, the money, the status, will make it all worthwhile. But the primal self cannot be bought off with a bigger house or a fancier car. It doesn't care about your job title. It cares about authenticity. It cares about connection. It cares about meaning. And when it is starved of these things, it will make its desperation known, one way or another. Excellent. Let's proceed with the next two parts, where we begin the journey back, learning to hear the first whispers from our lost self. Part 4, Whispers from Within, the First Signals. So how do we begin? How do we start to part this veil and hear the voice of the self we have lost? The beautiful truth is that the primal self has never stopped trying to communicate with you. Even after years of neglect and suppression, it is constantly sending up signals, whispering guidance, trying to get your attention. Your task is not to create a new voice, but simply to learn how to recognize the one that has been speaking to you all along. You have to train your ear to hear the whisper beneath the roar. These whispers come in many forms. One of the most common and powerful is the gut feeling. This is not a thought. It's a physical, visceral sensation. It's that sudden, inexplicable knot of no in your stomach when you are about to agree to something that isn't right for you. It's that feeling of lightness and expansion in your chest, a full-body yes, when you encounter a person or an opportunity that is perfectly aligned with your path. This is your primal self, your ancient animal body, communicating its deep, holistic wisdom to you directly, bypassing the chattering, analytical mind. For years, we are taught to mistrust this. Don't be irrational. Be logical. What do the numbers say? But how many times have you ignored a gut feeling, only to regret it later? How many times have you said, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Something told me not to. That something is the whisper of your primal self. The first step in reclaiming it is to start honoring these physical intuitions, even in small ways. Another way it speaks is through sudden, seemingly random urges and longings. It's that sudden, overwhelming desire to get out of the city and be in nature. That inexplicable pull you feel towards a certain place, a certain piece of music, a certain type of creative expression. It's the part of you that feels a deep pang of longing when you see someone living a simpler, more authentic life. These are not random whims. These are postcards from your lost self, showing you pictures of what it needs to be nourished. It is crying out for connection to the natural world, for beauty, for creative expression, for simplicity. Instead of dismissing these urges as impractical or childish, start to treat them as sacred messages. You don't have to sell your house and move to the woods tomorrow. But maybe you can honor that urge by taking a walk in a park during your lunch break, by putting on that piece of music that makes your soul stir, or by taking 5 minutes to sketch in a notebook. You are showing your primal self that you are listening. These whispers are subtle. They are easily drowned out. And that is why the most critical practice for beginning this journey is the cultivation of silence and solitude. You cannot hear a whisper in a hurricane. You must intentionally create moments in your day that are free from external input. This is where you create the possibility of hearing the inner voice. When you are sitting in silence, with no phone, no TV, no podcast, the first thing you will hear is the noise of your own conditioned mind. The anxiety, the to-do lists, the inner critic. This is normal. But if you can sit through that initial storm, a deeper quiet emerges. And in that quiet, you can begin to notice the more subtle signals. You can notice the tension in your body. You can feel the deeper underlying emotions beneath your surface-level thoughts. You can hear the faint call of a longing you had forgotten. Silence is not an empty space. It is the listening room where the conversation with your primal self can finally begin. Part 5. Practical first steps. Once you have committed to creating these small pockets of silence, you can begin to engage in specific, practical exercises that will amplify the whispers of your primal self. These are not complex rituals. They are simple, grounding practices that tether you to the real, the authentic, and the embodied. The first and most powerful of these is journaling, but not in the way you might think. This is not about dutifully recording the events of your day. This is about creating a direct line of communication with your inner self. Get a simple, physical notebook and a pen. The tactile, physical act is important. It engages a different part of your brain than typing on a screen. In your quiet time, begin with a simple prompt. You can ask, "What am I truly feeling, right now, beneath all my thoughts?" And then you just let your hand move across the page, without censorship, without judgment. Don't worry about grammar or spelling. Just let it flow. This practice, often called free writing, allows you to bypass the conscious, critical mind and tap directly into your subconscious. You will be astonished at the wisdom, the anger, the sadness, and the deep longings that emerge on the page, things you never knew you were feeling. Another powerful prompt is to have a written dialogue. You can write a question from your conscious self, "Why do I feel so stuck?" And then you can switch your pen to your non-dominant hand and let it answer. Writing with your non-dominant hand is another trick to bypass the logical ego and access the more intuitive, holistic right brain. The answers that come through can be startlingly direct and wise. This journal becomes your sacred space, a private place where your primal self can finally speak its uncensored truth. The second practice is mindful movement. Our primal self lives in our body, not just in our head. But many of us treat our bodies like taxis, just vehicles to carry our brains from one meeting to the next. We have lost our connection to our physical, animal nature. You can begin to reconnect this thread through any form of mindful movement. This doesn't have to be a formal yoga class, unless that calls to you. It can be as simple as taking a slow, observant walk. Feel your feet making contact with the ground. Notice the rhythm of your own breathing. Pay attention to the way the air feels on your skin. It can be putting on a piece of music in your living room and just letting your body move however it wants to move, without choreography, without worrying about how it looks. Shake, stretch, stomp, dance. This reconnects you to your body's innate wisdom and helps to release stored physical and emotional tension. You are letting the wild animal out of its cage to move and breathe again. The third practice is to begin observing natural cycles. Our primal self is wired to the rhythms of the earth, the rising and setting of the sun, the phases of the moon, the turning of the seasons. Our modern, artificially lit, climate-controlled world has completely divorced us from these cycles. You can start to rebuild this connection in very simple ways. Make a point to watch the sunset a few times a week. Step outside for a few minutes at night and look at the moon. Notice what phase it's in. Pay attention to the subtle shifts in the natural world around you as the seasons change, the first bud on a tree, the changing angle of the light. This practice recalibrates your internal clock. It pulls you out of the frantic, linear, man-made time of schedules and deadlines, and reroutes you in the deep, cyclical, sacred time of the natural world. It reminds you, on a cellular level, that you are not separate from nature, but a part of it. These three practices, journaling, movement, and observation, are the anchors that will pull you out of the turbulent waters of the modern mind and onto the solid ground of your own primal, authentic being. Part 6. Reconnecting the threads. As you engage with these practices, as you start to hear the whispers from within, the next phase of the journey begins. This is the work of reconnection, of consciously taking the threads of your primal wisdom and weaving them back into the fabric of your daily life. This is often the most challenging and courageous part of the process, because it requires you to move beyond the private sanctuary of your own practice and start showing up differently in the world. It requires you to embrace the very things our modern culture has taught us to fear: vulnerability and imperfection. The persona, the mask of the ego, is built on a foundation of control and invulnerability. It wants to appear perfect, to have all the answers, to never be seen as weak or uncertain. Your primal self, on the other hand, understands that vulnerability is not weakness, it is the prerequisite for genuine connection. Your primal self knows that we are all imperfect, messy, and flawed, and that this is the very source of our shared humanity. Reclaiming your primal self means having the courage to let the mask slip. This will change your relationships. You might find yourself having conversations that are more honest and direct. Instead of swallowing your feelings to avoid conflict, you might learn to express your anger or your hurt in a clean, clear way. Instead of pretending you have it all together, you might find the courage to say to a trusted friend, "I'm feeling lost right now, and I'm scared." This kind of authentic communication is terrifying to the ego, but it is nectar to the soul. It dissolves the illusion of separation and creates the possibility of true intimacy, where you are loved not for the mask you wear, but for the beautifully imperfect human being you actually are. This will also change your relationship with your work. As you get more in touch with your primal self, you will find it increasingly difficult to tolerate work that is meaningless or that violates your core values. Your intuition will become a powerful career counselor. It might start nudging you to speak up in meetings with ideas you would have previously kept to yourself. It might urge you to take on a project that is more creatively fulfilling, even if it's less prestigious. It might, in some cases, make it clear that you are in the wrong job or the wrong field entirely. Listening to these nudges requires immense courage, as it often means choosing the path of uncertainty over the path of security. But it is the only path to a life where your work is not a source of depletion, but an expression of your soul's purpose. You begin to choose authenticity over applause. Embracing imperfection is the other side of this coin. The primal self is not a perfectionist. It understands that life is a process of trial and error, of growth, of learning from mistakes. The modern ego is terrified of failure. It sees it as a judgment on its worth. Reconnecting with your primal self allows you to decouple your self-worth from your performance. You can try something new and fail, and instead of collapsing into shame, you can see it as valuable data, a lesson learned. This frees you up to be more creative, to take more risks, to live a bigger, more adventurous life. You stop trying to curate a perfect-looking life and start actually living a real one, with all of its messy, unpredictable, and heartbreakingly beautiful glory. Part 7. The ripple effect. This journey of reclaiming your primal self, which begins as a deeply personal and inward act, does not end with you. It creates a ripple effect that touches everyone and everything around you. A person who is living from their authentic center becomes a powerful, positive force in the world, often without even trying. Your own healing becomes a form of service. Think about the effect on your immediate relationships. When you learn to be more present, more authentic, and more vulnerable, you give the people around you permission to do the same. When you listen to your partner or your child with a quiet, non-judgmental mind, you create a sanctuary for them. When you stop performing and start being real, you liberate others from the pressure to perform around you. Your centered presence becomes a calming force in any room you enter. Your nervous system, which is no longer in a constant state of fight or flight, has a co-regulating effect on the nervous systems of others. You become a walking, talking embodiment of peace, and that is a profound gift to everyone you interact with. This ripples out into your work and your community. A person who is guided by their primal intuition is a natural leader, regardless of their official title. They can cut through the noise and get to the heart of an issue. They make decisions that are not just good for the bottom line, but are good for the people involved. They are not afraid to speak truth to power, because their sense of security comes from their inner connection, not from external approval. They bring a level of creativity, resilience, and integrity that is desperately needed in our institutions. One authentic, centered person can change the entire culture of a team, a department, or even a company, inspiring others to bring more of their own true selves to the table. This leads us to a crucial understanding about changing the world. Many of us feel overwhelmed by the scale of the world's problems, the environmental crises, the political divisions, the social injustices. We feel small and powerless. We think the solutions must be vast, complex, and external. But what if the most powerful revolutionary act is to do our own inner work? What if the healing of the planet begins with the healing of our own relationship to our primal, natural selves? The writer and activist Terry Tempest Williams speaks to this beautifully. She wrote, to be whole, to be complete. Wildness reminds us what it means to be human, what we are connected to rather than what we are separate from. When you reclaim your primal self, you reclaim your wildness. You remember, on a cellular level, that you are not separate from the earth. You are a part of its living, breathing body. And when you feel that connection, you cannot help but act in a way that honors it. You naturally become a steward of the environment. Your consumer choices change. Your political priorities shift. You are no longer acting from a place of abstract, intellectual principle, but from a place of deep, embodied love for the web of life you are a part of. The healing of the self and the healing of the world are not two separate things. They are the same journey. And it starts with the quiet, courageous act of listening to the whispers from within. Part 8. The awakened being. There comes a point on this journey, after you have been practicing for some time, after you have learned to hear the whispers and have found the courage to follow them, where a fundamental shift occurs. It's not a dramatic, lightning bolt moment. It's a quiet, gradual dawning. It is the feeling of coming home. The persistent, low-grade anxiety that was the background noise of your life simply dissolves. The frantic need to seek, to acquire, to become more falls away. The gnawing feeling of being off or disconnected is replaced by a profound sense of rightness, of being exactly where you are supposed to be. This is the peace that comes from aligning your outer life with your inner, true nature. This is the state of the awakened being. And by awakened, I don't mean some kind of superhuman, enlightened guru who floats above the messy reality of life. That is another myth of perfection. I mean awakened in the simplest sense. You are no longer asleep to your own true self. You are awake to your own primal wisdom, your own intuition, your own authentic feelings. You have integrated the wild, wise animal with the intelligent, conscious human, and the two are no longer at war. They are partners in the dance of life. The clarity that arises from this state is extraordinary. Because you are no longer being pulled in 1,000 different directions by external demands and internal conflicts, your energy is unified. Your decisions become simpler, not because the problems of the world have gone away, but because your inner compass is now strong and clear. You know what is a yes for you and what is a no. You can navigate the complexities of life with a new sense of grace and efficiency, because you are no longer wasting vast amounts of energy suppressing your own truth. This newfound integrity unlocks vast reserves of energy and potential that were previously unavailable to you. All the energy that was being consumed by anxiety, by self-doubt, by the performance of being someone you're not, is now liberated for other purposes. This is where you move beyond simple survival and into a state of thriving. Your creativity flows more easily. Your relationships deepen. Your physical health often improves, as your body is no longer marinating in a constant bath of stress hormones. You begin to experience a sense of wholeness that is not dependent on external circumstances. Your happiness is no longer a fragile thing that can be shattered by a bad day at work or a critical comment from a stranger. It becomes a deep wellspring within you, a quiet joy that arises from the simple fact of your own authentic existence. Part 9. Beyond survival to thriving. Living from this place of awakened, primal connection is not a static endpoint. It is not a destination you arrive at, after which all your problems are solved forever. It is the beginning of a new way of walking, a new way of being in the world. It is a continuous, unfolding path of discovery. The communication with your primal self becomes a living dialogue that guides you, day by day, moment by moment. Life does not cease to be challenging. You will still face loss, you will still experience pain, you will still make mistakes. The difference is that you now face these challenges with your whole self. You have access to a resilience, a wisdom, and a sense of purpose that you lacked before. Your potential, which was once capped by your own limiting beliefs and your fear of imperfection, now becomes an open horizon. You might find yourself drawn to new adventures, new forms of learning, new ways of being of service that your old, fearful self would never have considered. You begin to trust the unfolding of your own life's journey, even when you don't know the final destination. The need to control every outcome lessens, replaced by a deep trust in your own ability to respond to whatever life brings. This is the essence of thriving. It is not about having a perfect, problem-free life. It is about having a deep and unshakable sense of your own capacity to meet life in all its fullness. The poet and philosopher David Whyte speaks of this in his work on the conversational nature of reality. He suggests that we are in a constant dialogue with life, and that the quality of our life depends on the quality of the questions we are willing to ask. Reclaiming your primal self allows you to ask bigger, more beautiful questions. Instead of asking, "How can I be safe?" you start to ask, "How can I be of service?" Instead of asking, "What do people want from me?" you start to ask, "What does my soul want to express in the world?" This journey fundamentally changes your relationship with fear. The ego's primary motivation is fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear of death. The primal self does not operate from this place. It has a deep, instinctual understanding of the cycles of life and death. It knows that it is part of something much larger than the individual ego. By grounding yourself in this primal wisdom, you don't eliminate fear, but you learn to hold it differently. You can feel fear and still act with courage. You can acknowledge the risks and still choose the path of adventure. Fear ceases to be a wall that stops you and becomes just another piece of information, another energy to be felt and moved through. This is the ultimate freedom, to be free from the tyranny of your own fear. Part 10. The epiphany. The world we live in will not encourage you to take this journey. It will do everything in its power to keep you distracted, to keep you performing, to keep you asleep to your own true nature. It will sell you 1,000 solutions for the emptiness you feel, 1,000 products to numb the pain of your disconnection. But none of them will work. Because the cure for the sickness of modernity is not another piece of technology. It is not another purchase. The cure is a homecoming. It is the quiet, courageous, and deeply personal act of turning away from the noise and beginning the journey back to the wild, wise, and sacred ground of your own being. This journey is your birthright. The primal self is not something you need to create. It is not something you have to earn. It is already within you, waiting patiently. It has been waiting your entire life for you to remember it, to turn your attention towards it, to feed it with silence and nature and authenticity, and to finally let it come out of the darkness and inform your life. You don't need to wait for a crisis to begin. You don't need to wait until you hit rock bottom. You can begin tonight. You can begin tomorrow morning. You can begin with one small, intentional act. Turn off your phone and watch the sunset. Put on a piece of music and dance in your living room. Take out a journal and ask your heart what it truly wants. Every act of choosing the real over the artificial, the authentic over the performed, the natural over the synthetic, is a step on this path. Every moment you choose to listen to the whisper within over the roar without, you are strengthening that connection. You are calling your own soul home. This is the great, quiet revolution of our time. It will not be televised. It will happen in the hearts and minds of individual men and women who decide that they are no longer willing to live as ghosts in their own lives. People who decide to reclaim their sovereignty, their intuition, and their connection to the earth. People who decide to become the whole, awakened beings they were always meant to be. Are you one of them? The ancient, primal self within you is asking. Listen. Can you hear it? Your true nature is not lost. It is simply waiting. If you felt the echo of this truth in your own soul, the journey has already begun. Subscribe. Stay close. Don't just live your life. Let the wild, wise truth of who you are live through you.